we got to get into StainD.
We're talking about the album.
So
yes,
excited.
This month we are covering StainD's Dysfunction. This album came out on April 13th of 1999. It's the second studio album by the band StainD, but kind of their first sort of major label, their first sort of serious effort. They had put out an album in 1996 called Tormented, but that was self-produced and released.
Incredibly satanic too, and scary.
Yes, we'll get into that. But yes, they were signed essentially by Fred Durst to Flip Records, which was a subsidiary of Elektra. As I said, came out on April 13th, 1999. It was produced by Terry Date, who of course we know as a big fan of Deftones, and he's produced a lot of nu metal albums. It was also co-produced by Jordan Schur and the one and only Fred Durst. The album begat 4 singles. The first single that came out with the album was Just Go, came out on May of 1999, peaked at number 24 on the Billboard Mainstream Rock Tracks chart, and then Mud Shovel was the second single, and I would argue the more popular single on this album. It peaked at number 10 on the Mainstream Rock Tracks chart and number 14 on the Modern Rock Tracks chart. Kind of I think the song that a lot of people Break the Cycle StainD would have known. The other 2 singles were Home and Suffocate. Neither one of them charted. This album overall actually kind of had a bit of a slow roll. It didn't sell a ton. It only sold 29,000 copies in its first week. It debuted at number 173 on the Billboard 200. But then as it began to gain steam from from Mud Shovel, it peaked at number 74 on November 6th, 1999, and ended up being on the chart for 56 weeks. And then once it started to kind of get more traction, it ended up doing even better and peaked at number 1 on the Heat Seekers albums chart and on the Top Pop Catalog albums chart. Which is, I think, when you go back in time and look at it, I don't know. And then in 2000, a year later after it came out, it ended the year at number 174 on the US Billboard 200. And obviously, once Break the Cycle broke big, a lot of people went back and bought this record, and it ended up getting certified double platinum in February of 2004. So it has sold over 2 million copies. And obviously a pretty big album in the nu metal genre. StainD, a pretty big band. Some other things, they opened for Korn on Korn's Sick and Twisted tour in 2000. They also did get more attention for this album because of Outside. So of course we know that duet with Fred Durst did very, very well. Peaked at number 56 on the Billboard Hot 100 and remained on the chart for 19 weeks. It also peaked at number 1 on the Mainstream Rock Tracks chart and number 2 on the Alternative Songs chart. So kind of a lot of things working in concert to kind of blow StainD up in the moment. Now, Bryan, I know you have kind of talked about this before, but I think, a lot of people got on the StainD bandwagon with Break the Cycle, specifically with the song It's Been a While, or even if they did get before that, it was only with Outside. But you were actually like in on StainD in the Dysfunction era, correct?
Yeah, I don't even know how I got my hands on. I guess it would have been Fred Durst had something to do with it. So I felt like I needed to check it out. And when I heard it, it's so weird, man. I listened to it today. I remember at the time thinking like, this is the only, I'm only going to give this the one, I remember listening and thinking like, this is going to be the only album I like where this guy sings like this. And I think at the time I thought he was singing like Eddie Vedder. He was doing a post grunge sing. And now when I listen to it, I'm like, I don't think he is actually doing that. He's doing
I think it's just kind of how his voice sounds. I don't think he's actually trying to do a like her, like I think he just kind of has a voice that sounds like that somewhat naturally.
Yeah. And like I don't know. I truly like I love this album. This one I didn't even buy the next one I didn't buy Break the Cycle. I didn't have it. The first time I listened to it was for this show.
Really? Break the Cycle? I mean, you would have known the singles, I guess.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, I still like the one song off there, but what is that song? So you were just too busy with yourself. That song, I love.
It's Fade.
I just needed someone to talk to.
You were just too busy with yourself. And then it's like, we could let some of this anger fade. Yeah, the song's Fade. Yeah, there's some good songs on Break the Cycle. I think For You is also a really good song. But yeah, Fade is excellent.
I think the problem is this album is their heaviest album. For sure.
Oh, no question about it.
And like this album is, I think, a tighter representation of what they can do and what they can be than the Break the Cycle is very, it's hard to explain. Like it's very like way more polished. And I tend to, when it comes to my new metal, prefer unpolished, you know.
Sure.
I love Adrenaline. I love the first Korn album. Love $3 Bill, y'all. Like a lot of that stuff that maybe is a little less well produced. And even now, in I like King Khan and Barbecue and like all that stuff that's like kind of like not produced perfectly, on purpose in a way. So I think this album is really kind of the best of both worlds, where it's like, this is before there was somebody telling them what they have to do, besides Fred Durst. But it seems like Fred Durst actually made the band better, because apparently the album was heavier, and he said, you guys should go the other direction. Maybe.
That sounds like they had more. It seems like, from some of the articles, the indication from Fred was that it needed less screaming. I don't know that he necessarily said it needed to be more poppy or something like that, but he just thought that they needed to have less screaming. And I think it was because he thought that Aaron Lewis had a winning voice. So that's he was funny. Like, why are you screaming when you could? But I mean, Fred Durst also thought Wes Scantlin was Kurt Cobain. So
I think it's very funny that it's very obvious that Fred Durst's favorite like music was like Alice in Chains and that like Temple of the Dog and like he loved that grunge stuff so fucking much. And this is his Alice in Chains. And I like this better than Alice in Chains, to tell you the truth. I never really liked Alice in Chains. And this is a way better mix of metal and whatever. Again, the post-grunge thing, it's hard to give them that, because they do follow almost every rule of nu metal, with one exception. They don't rap. Yeah. So it's weird, because it's like they're fighting against being called. Actually, they do, from the article, seem like the first band that isn't running from it, where they're like, yeah, I mean, you know, we were in a cover band. We played Deftones, Korn, and Limp Bizkit songs because that's what we like. And it was like, so they weren't running from it. And I think this album is just I'll tell you what, man, I used to sit in this trailer I lived in with P.O.D and her brother and another guy and her brother's two kids. And we would sit there and his wife. It was a lot of people in one trailer. And we would sit in the living room, and I'd be playing Dreamcast, playing like NFL 2K, and my roommate Nate would be sitting across the room playing the bass line to Mud Shovel all fucking day long. It just he would play it all day. And that song is another one that just reminds me of sitting in that fucking trailer.
Sense memory.
It's sitting in that fucking trailer smoking cigarettes while this guy plays the bass line to Mud Shovel. Nobody else in the house could play any instruments. He played bass, which is such a funny, like,
it's a very funny sitting around playing instrument. Gather around the campfire and let me whip out my bass.
Well, he also told me, like, you should get guitar lessons. He hit me to the place where he got guitar lessons. So I went to get guitar lessons, and I was just like, I'd like to learn how to play Mud Shovel so me and my roommate can play Mud Shovel together all the time. And he taught me, but it was like too hard.
Yeah, I feel like that's
play.
not necessarily an easy. If you don't know how to play guitar, you probably don't start with Mud Shovel.
Yeah, but again,
because it's also got a lot of effects on it too. So it's like you'd have to have like to play it properly, you'd have to have like pedals and like
it's harmonics. You have to learn. It's like a different kind of playing guitar that you probably learn after you learn how to actually play guitar, you know? So it was like, it was like, because I've told this before. I went into that fucking guitar lesson, and the first thing I said was, "Can you teach me how to play Cemetery Gates by Pantera?" Which is a fucking crazy thing to ask a guy. You're not having. He should have looked at me and said, "You will never learn to play Pantera," but he didn't. He just taught me how to play like one of the riffs from the song.
He's like, "Well, we'll start with Hot Cross Buns, and work our way to Cemetery Gates."
So he teaches me one of the riffs from Cemetery Gates, and I'm like, I really like that. This is fun to play, and I played it all the time. I play that all day. I just sit in the room with the fucking amp out, just playing that one riff from that song. And then I went back to guitar lessons after I learned it, and I was like, I'm going to need you to teach me Rage Against the Machine. So he taught me some Rage Against the Machine songs, and it's like, I never learned how to play because I kept cutting him off and being like, no, I just want to learn Bomb Track. I don't want to learn these scales. Like, what am I going to do with these fucking scales? I want to learn Pantera. Like, I had in my mind that if I learned how to play like enough Pantera songs, I'd be able to take those pieces of those songs and turn them into my own songs.
Right, like you would be able to bypass music theory, because if you can learn Pantera, then you've basically conquered music theory.
Piecing heavy metal together. I'll be piecing heavy metal together. But yeah, I tried to learn Mud Shovel. I tried to learn Just Go. I saw these guys live a few times on this tour. They were on the 99.7 The Blitz. One of the times I saw them was Polaris Amphitheater. 99.7 The Blitz presents StainD and Kid Rock, and I have to imagine that there were some political discussions going on backstage.
I'm trying to think of like, you know, because we can't do a StainD episode without talking about modern day Aaron Lewis and his politics, and we'll get to that in the articles, but. Like, because Kid Rock is very easy to imagine, you know, like him doing the whole, like, you fuck with Trump, you fuck with me, or like whatever. Like, that is so easy to imagine. He's like a skid from Detroit, whatever. But like, do you think Aaron Lewis was always this kind of like radicalized dude, or is this just like part of a grift? Like, I can never get a sense of like, in this moment, was Aaron Lewis backstage with Korn being like, the Democrats are fucking us over, you know, or whatever? Like, I don't know. I don't know if I can see that.
I think the age they were when 9/11 happened, because that's the thing that happened, right? Was in 2001, 9/11 happens, and then everybody becomes political. Everybody in the United States is political for a couple years. And that, when you look at like polls of, you know, in 2002, 2003 of like how popular George W. Bush and the Republicans were, it's like that made such a huge impression on people that exact age of that exact generation, because we were too young to care. It was like, this thing happened. I was just on the edge. You know, I think I was 20 or 21 when 9/11 happened. So I was like just kind of on the edge, and I didn't care about it at all. I told the story on one of the podcasts, on one of the episodes of guys, like, when it happened, I didn't even think it was that big of a fucking deal. I was like, okay, like whatever. And I didn't know it was a big deal until later. And, you know, would start listening to talk radio when I was working, because I loved talk radio as a kid. Like, I loved Howard Stern. I got into Opie and Anthony a little later, but I was very big into Howard Stern from like the age of like 15 on, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So when I got that job at that cable company, I wanted to listen to Howard Stern. So I would listen to Howard Stern in the morning, and I'd be like, I want to listen to more talk radio. And I'd flip over to fucking Glenn Beck and Rush Limbaugh because that was talk radio. That was the only fucking talk radio that was on. And it is what made me conservative for that period of time. Now, I am a person that's fine changing my mind. I don't care to change my mind. I'm not embarrassed to be like, I don't think I'm like this. So I changed my mind. I think Aaron Lewis is probably one of those guys that he's not listening to anybody. You know what I mean?
Yes,
and he reads as conservative. He reads as just conservative as he is now in 2000. To me, he reads that way. I'm sure he was a little more socially liberal at that time, but I think he's always like kind of a Republican guy. And you can hear this album. One of the things that strikes me as super strange about this album is we know that he is a very big, it's interesting. We know that he's a respect your elders guy now. Right?
Oh, big time. Yeah.
Like he would be mad if you weren't, you know, they're why, and that's because he's one. But I think I think it's so strange because you read these interviews and he was kind of like that then, but all of his songs are about how he was let down by the people in charge of him. It's really fucking the message of this album is so muddled and fucking weird. And if it wasn't so good, I'd be like, I think, but if it wasn't so good, I think I'd probably be more willing to go in on it. This album might be the widest gulf between I like the album, I don't like the people. Like this is the most this is a big separate the art from the artist album for me.
But
because these guys all seem like dipshits to me. We only had the one interview with Mike Mushak, but he also seems very stupid.
Yes,
and I watched an interview with him and Sully from Godsmack, and he did not come off as like a smart.
No, they don't seem like smart guys. And they don't like each other either. I don't know if I included this in the articles, but like there's one part where Aaron is saying like, yeah, I don't hang out with the bands. We don't hang out. We're not really friends. Like we're business people. Like the band is a business. And like when we have to go into the studio, then we hang out and it's fine. And when we have to go on tour, we hang out and it's fine. But like when I go home, I just don't talk to those guys for like months at a time. And it makes me feel like there was already some kind of like discontent there, you know, like it's usually with these bands, especially StainD, you know, they just released an album like last year. They, you know, usually with these bands, there's some level of friendship there, at least between some of the members. You know, maybe me and the drummer, we're not the best of friends, but we get along. It's fine. But me and the guitar player are like, you know, till death do us part kind of thing. Whereas it seems like all these guys are just like, I don't know.
I don't think Aaron Lewis has friends.
It kind of seems like he doesn't, right? Like he kind of talks about that too. And he's such a bizarre character that way where, you know, he some of the stuff he says, and even we learned this when we did the Break the Cycle album, that he doesn't really think about the lyrics that much. He doesn't like write down the lyrics. Because remember, we found those quotes about his solo stuff where he was like, this is the first time I've actually like cared and like wrote down lyrics and stuff. And you're like, yeah, I get that listening to this record.
Yeah.
It's not profound. I'll say that.
No. And he's a 52-year-old man. He seems like one of those guys that as he gets older, he sheds more friends to the point. I mean, John, he can't even perform for his fans without melting down. You know what I mean?
Like so many videos of him getting mad.
He has such contempt for the people that pay to see him. Like he doesn't seem like a friendly guy. No. And if you told me that, you know, these guys don't like each other, I would believe that as, of course. Like it's the same thing. Like you can't look at Korn. Like people have left and come back and stuff like that. And like, but I still see those guys as friends. I think, you know, I think Head left. I don't think they were ever not friends. It just he wasn't vibing with where the band was at that time, and they weren't vibing with him, so he left. And I think that's like, and Fred, I mean, Limp Bizkit, those guys, as much as you think about the friction between Fred and Wes, I get the impression now that they have a respect for each other, and they just kind of, maybe they're different types of guys, but I think Wes, as he's gotten older, realizes how important Fred was to his life, and Fred understands how important Wes was to the band. Yeah. You know what I mean? That now there's like a respect. I think Aaron Lewis seems like the type of guy who really thinks that the success of StainD is because of him. Like you never hear him,
and I agree.
Yeah, you never hear him talk about
him.
Yeah. You never hear him talk about any of the music. He says they make the music, I walk in and I do the lyrics. That is like, he doesn't ever say like, I like the music, this is great music. And when he got to do what he wanted to do, he started doing his country music. Yeah. And like,
and even in these interviews, he talks about that, right? Like we've talked on this show before about how, you know, the touchstone bands for a lot of the new metal bands are new wave. That's like all you get, right? Is Duran Duran and the Cocteau Twins and whatever, you know, New Order and that kind of stuff. And he is kind of the first guy that's like, yeah, no, like for me, it's like Hank Williams and Woody Guthrie and like all it. And you're like, oh, okay.
This motherfucker should listen to Woody Guthrie's lyrics then. Son of a bitch.
I don't know if he actually said.
I was going to say, I don't think he understands Woody Guthrie. But well, I would believe that with him, though. He's just a surly guy. I don't think he's seen. I also think, he doesn't have friends because he doesn't want friends. But I also can't imagine somebody wanting to be friends with this guy. He seems so unpleasant. So
he's definitely
incredibly unpleasant. Yeah. The only I can picture him interacting with people positively in one way, and that is a cop or a guy in the military or a fireman.
Oh, he loves a military guy, no doubt.
Yeah. Like he sees them and he's respectful, and he probably his face lights up like like I just met.
Thank you, sir.
Somebody cool. You know what I mean?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, well, thank you.
I love you. Thank you for your service. And you should come to one of my shows.
Yes.
Thank you for your service, and come to one of my shows. I've got a lot of songs about stuff that you and I probably agree on.
Please don't dance at the show. I can't stand to see people dancing and having fun. You're supposed to be watching and listening. Yeah, okay? This is a respectful concert.
That's right.
And we're being respectful. I expect my audience to be respectful. I expect my band to be respectful. And I expect the people that own the venue to be respectful. This is the type of guy that comes wandering. Listen.
Stand there and be quiet. Don't move. Don't do anything.
He's my father-in-law is what he is. Like, the guy had friends when I started dating Katie when he was in his 40s or 50s. And now he's just like, he didn't talk to nobody. He didn't talk to another single person. And he reminds me of him. It's just, I don't know. I've probably told this a million times. When I was in college, I read this study, in a sociology course. I read this book that was it was called like a social autopsy of a heat wave, of the biggest heat wave in American history. And the surprising statistic to the author and the people doing the study was like, a lot of old white men died. So they were like, why are a lot of old white men dying in their apartments during these things? So they started to research that, and they found out it's because old white men chase everybody away from them. Once they start getting old, they're surly, and they're surly, and their people just don't want to be around them anymore because they've been like Aaron Lewis. He acts like that to me. Does he even have kids?
Aaron Lewis? I don't think so.
God, this guy, man, he just has no. Oh, he does have a kid. Okay,
okay.
He wrote a song for his daughter sings. Okay, good. At least he has somebody.
Yeah, his wife and they have three daughters.
Good. I mean,
they married in 2002, and they have three daughters.
Yeah. Yeah. So, he just seems unpleasant and uncool. And like, I don't think anybody, I know he can't have anybody that's friendly with him in the scene. And like when they go play these festivals, I mean, I assume that he sees himself on a higher level than the other guys in the other bands because of his country thing. You know what I mean? So like,
yeah,
when
I
he
think
goes,
I don't know if he would think that the StainD themselves are better, but I think that he would probably think he's like the best vocalist in nu metal.
well, he's also the biggest star, I think, is what he really like. That he comes back there and he's like, all these fucking bands are stuck touring with, whatever, the Edema's stuck touring with whatever albums they released in the early 2000s. Not me. I tour and I do my own new original songs. You know what I mean? Almost like a cover band. And actually, this comes up in one of the articles. Almost like a cover band that starts doing their own songs. He's like he's talking about like just putting one of their songs in every few songs on a set. I
circled that because I would hate that so.
And then feeling good about it though, being like, those songs are also getting big. Those songs are getting big reactions. Maybe we should just switch to being this thing. And I think that he did Outside. And I think he was like, well, people really like this acoustic version of me. Yeah. I'm going to do more of that. And now he sells records. I don't know how much he sells. No, because nobody sells records.
But his tours are big. I remember we looked before. Like he tours.
I think he's playing smaller venues than I would expect, though.
Is he now?
I think so, because I think he plays like a bar here, like a 500-600 people bar.
He is playing back-to-back nights in Detroit, Michigan at the Soundboard Theater.
Oh,
let me look here. Capacity is 2,400, and he is playing back 2 nights.
5,000.
So 5,000.
We say 5,000.
That's a lot.
Yeah, he's doing okay.
He's doing well. And he plays amphitheaters too, but it's all like he's playing like strongholds, like it very much feels like I'm doing the Republican tour. He's playing Grundy County, Tennessee, Lampe, Missouri, Ashland, Kentucky, Saginaw, Michigan, Farmington, Pennsylvania, Roanoke, Virginia. Then he's doing a bunch of dates in Florida, Tunica Resorts, Mississippi, Dothan, Alabama, back to Florida again, Hot Springs, Arkansas, Biloxi, Mississippi. So he's like, he's hitting the places that would like what he's doing.
Yeah.
I wonder if
he's not doing like LA
songs. Like he must do It's Been a While when he's doing solo tours, right? You don't
might do Outside. Might do Outside. I don't think he does.
Okay, let's see. July 19th, 2024. He played. Oh my God, he does a bunch of covers. That's really rough.
Yeah,
he does this. He does 3 StainD songs. He does Here and Now, Outside, and It's Been a While. And then he covers I Want It That Way by the Backstreet Boys.
Oh, that's funny. That's
Summer of 69 by Bryan Adams.
Oh, he's good.
Wicked Game by Chris Isaak. When Doves Cry by Prince. And Hunger Strike by Temple of the Dog. And he does that all in a chunk in the middle of his set.
Oh, so it's probably a mega mix. He's probably not even covering the whole song.
No, probably not. Yeah.
It's probably I'll do a verse of this song into a verse of this song. His version of When Doves Cry has to be one of the worst songs ever made. I can't imagine that being
good. There's no way it's good.
Any good. I'm going to get this out of the way right now. This album is perfect.
Wow, you're calling this album a perfecto?
It is a perfecto. Every song is good.
Oh, man.
Even the songs that I think are weaker are only 4 minutes or less. So, and they have a part. So I'm listening to this album. What's it called? A Flat comes on.
Yeah.
I'm listening to it. I'm like, this is kind of a weak song. And it is kind of a weak song.
I wrote down A Flat is filler central.
But the breakdown in A Flat fucking rules. Like that got me excited. So that made A Flat higher than average song. Every song on here, none of them overstay their welcome, and every song at least has one very cool part in it. I loved this. I listened to it twice this morning. Then I told my wife, and she was like, I told you, I was like, I wake up first thing in the morning, I listen to StainD. And she was like, which album? And I was like, the first one. She was like, that's their only good one. So even she loves it.
Even she knows.
Yeah. It's a good album, man. It's as good as it gets.
So I guess I never even talked about my history with this album because we just got down the Aaron Lewis rabbit hole, which was bound to happen. But I would say, so this is a weird one for me because I talked about this when we did Break the Cycle, but Break the Cycle was like a big album for me and my friends. Came out in 2001. I'm 16. Nu metal, wasn't dead for us. And also, it was kind of poppy, right? Like It's Been a While was a huge song. Like that had crossover. My, friends who did not like heavy music liked It's Been a While. It got a ton of play on Much Music, all that stuff. And so I think that when that got big, I heard Mud Shovel because it was like, I think my friend had it on like a mix CD or something. And I was like, who is this? Because it does not sound like StainD. If all you know about StainD is Break the Cycle, Mud Shovel does not sound like StainD. And he was like, StainD. And I was like, really? This is StainD? Like, this is heavy. This is fucking cool. And so I always liked Mud Shovel. But this was an era, and we've talked about this before, where like CDs are just really expensive. So I just like wasn't invested enough in Mud Shovel to go back and be like, I got to hear more of the first StainD album. And I remember people, and I guess it's technically the second, but whatever. I remember people going back or people telling me that it was good, and then I think like by the time I might have gone back to it, StainD became kind of a punchline, right? Like 14 Shades of Grey or whatever the fuck the third album is called, sucks. And then it was just kind of like, okay, we're out on StainD. And then I just like, it just fell by the wayside. And I just like, I always liked Mud Shovel, but I never listened to this album. And then once we started doing this podcast, I told myself if I didn't listen to an album before, I would save it for the episode. So I listened to it. It's not a perfect album.
Ooh,
and I think
so good.
But it is good. It is good. I liked it more than I was expecting to, just because I am definitely coming to a StainD record right now with baggage. So it's hard not to like think of, oh, Aaron Lewis is a dummy and whatever. But it's weird to me because I remember when we reviewed Break the Cycle, I liked it too. Like I think there's some really good songs on Break the Cycle, but I remember there was lots of songs I didn't like on it. And I think the songs on here that sound the most like Break the Cycle are their best songs. Like to me, the songs on here where they're trying to be really heavy, where they're screaming and stuff, I think they're weak. Like I think to me, that's where they're their weakest, is like they just were not that great at being like a really heavy band, in my opinion. And so I think the songs here that are clearly like a sort of blueprint for Break the Cycle, which I had like Just Go, to me could easily fit on Break the Cycle. As well as Home, which was one of the singles. Like those songs that sounded more like what was to come, I thought were their best songs. I like some of the articles talk about like, oh, Aaron is so gifted because he's such a great singer and he's can also scream. But again, I don't think the band, when they're doing like heavy screamy songs, it's just not what they're the best at. They sound very, very basic to me. They sound very boilerplate when they're trying to do heavy stuff.
So I want to ask a question here that you're not going to know the answer to, and I'm probably not going to be able to figure out. But something I found interesting about the album is I don't think I've ever heard that Aaron Lewis had a drug problem, but he sings about heroin a lot on this album. Like, what's the fucking song? And Just Go, he has a line where he says, I'm the needle in your spoon. And there's a song, Crawl, on here, which also I believe is about somebody doing heroin. And I wonder, it got me thinking, because I was like, okay, so this is a song about heroin, but most songs about heroin, and listen, Those are my favorite songs. All songs about heroin are so good. Rolling Stones.
Are
do a
you
bunch
sure
of really
that
good
Crawl
ones.
is about heroin, or it's not just about a girl?
There's a part in it that felt like
He
very.
says his deadly vices, scratched and torn, I lay here in pieces, craving all of your deadly vices.
Yes.
Like to think that I'm not addicted, but I guess I wear it well. But I feel like he's talking about a girl, like he's addicted to the girl.
Yeah, I just
maybe not. I don't know, but
I felt like. So I started thinking about it, and I was like, if these songs are about heroin, this guy obviously, I don't think ever went through that. You know what I mean? He doesn't seem like a guy
like lying about it.
Not only, no, I don't think he'd be lying about it. What I think is that it's negative, that he's kind of looking at it like heroin addicts are pieces of shit.
Oh, I see.
Like, I think it's like in a nasty way, not in like because, you know, there's plenty of songs out there about, you know, about heroin or crack or something like that. And they generally either have the, I feel very dirty and I'll do anything to get this.
Yes.
Those are the ones I love. And then there's also the ones that are like, you know, I feel bad for this person because they're addicted to heroin. And then I think there's a third kind that Aaron Lewis would do. That's like, I wish they would throw everybody that does heroin in jail and never let them out again.
Oh, if he wasn't that guy in 1999, he's definitely that guy now.
Yeah, it's just weird imagery it's to me very strange imagery if you've never had the thing to use, the needle and spoon and all that stuff. It just, I'm sure he ran into people that had problems or whatever, but I just always just assume that he's like, you know, he's being a dick about something. But you're right. This probably is more about a woman. I just heard the line, and I crawl while you spit and I crawl through you. And it felt like he was not singing about a person. He was singing about addiction. And like a lot of it felt like he was singing about addiction, but but in my mind, I was like, I never really noticed that. Just Go. I don't know what it is, but it definitely sounds like a song about heroin withdrawals, like, or drug withdrawals, period. Just Go does. And one of my favorite songs ever. I mean, if we had to make a list, I did make that was
Just Go. Interesting. Okay.
Oh, dude.
I mean, it's a good song. It just doesn't
great.
seem like a song that you would like necessarily. It's a little bit more.
Oh, dude, that chorus though, when he's like, such a cancer on the face of it. Like, I remember standing in mosh pits to that and screaming those lyrics with them. Like that it's a perfect chorus. Like a lot of these songs, StainD is very good. I don't think they would take credit for this, and I don't think they would love if I said they're very good at making like singable lyrics, I think.
Oh, absolutely. I feel like that's what they were always going for. I mean, certainly they go for it more on Break the Cycle. Like, I think so. It was funny because like listening to this, I was thinking of, I totally forgot about Outside, like, because that was kind of a weird moment in between the two albums. So when I'm listening to this, I was really focused on like trying to hear like the moment where Break the Cycle is happening, or like where they're figuring out like that's more the direction we should go in, forgetting that like it was totally Outside. Outside was them realizing, and again, I think it is because people like Aaron Lewis's voice, and I myself included. I think he has a good voice for this genre. I think he's a good singer, you know, no doubt. So that's fine. But I think they really realized, and we talked about it already, but it is in the articles where Fred is kind of saying like, you got to stop screaming. Like, you don't need the screaming. You need to go a little softer. And yeah, I think like it is interesting to hear the songs on here where they're kind of figuring out that like Aaron Lewis's voice is the weapon, but it's truly, I think it's Outside that turns them. Like, I wonder, it definitely makes me wonder about an alternate timeline where Outside doesn't break big and then they're doing more of this. Like, is that better or worse?
For me, it is.
Yeah, for you,
I also would say that the album version of Outside fucking sucks.
Yeah, it's not nearly as good.
I hate that.
They don't even talk about
it.
Biloxi in it.
No, and Fred's not feeling those lighters. No, I think that it was like a lightning in the bottle live song. You don't get those very often. You know, there's a few like really good live songs, and then, you know, most of the time people could do without live, like live versions. But I think Outside is the perfect. It's funny that you said it, because Outside's the perfect illustration of what I'm saying. Is like, okay, so I really like the version of Outside that is on a stage being organically done at Family Values 98 and one of the cities in Biloxi, Mississippi.
Yeah.
And I like that a lot. I don't like the version of Outside that they got into a studio, sat down with like Terry Date or somebody and figured out, you know, we're going to play it in a clean version. And I think that's why I really like this album. Reads more like the Outside on stage in Biloxi, Mississippi, and less like Outside from the album. And I think that's why I like this album more. This album is heavier. It like all of the things that you could probably not like about StainD are minimal in this album, and it's just like kind of it's heavy music with a good singer doing like singing great actually on this album. And the music is just I feel like the music's tight, and you're right, it probably is mostly his voice, but you know, you still got to have somebody to play the instruments behind him. And you know, I don't know, I think this is one of the better nu metal albums, period. It's one of the more brief ones. I like that it's 45 minutes long. Like, I really love it. So that's nice. And I do have one issue with it that would make it in like just so if you're going to do a hidden track on an album, don't end the last song with the thing that sounds like you're walking out of the door and shutting the door and leaving.
The way that was produced is very lame. It was a very much like, this just was a random studio Lucy, and we weren't doing this on purpose. It's like, fuck off.
It conjured up the image to me of, you know, Aaron Lewis is in the fucking vocal booth with a bunch of candles lit, like kind of going through his trauma or whatever, and finishing up. He gets up and, you know, wipes himself off. He walks out the door, and then he goes, "Oh, I just thought of another song," and he turns around and goes back in.
Yeah.
Like, you can't do the I'm leaving at the end of the hidden track. You can't do it at the end of the last song and then come back. It's weird. It doesn't make sense narratively for an album. So
yeah. I like this album. It is good. Like, it is definitely one of the better albums we've covered. And I wasn't surprised, because I've always had a soft spot for Mud Shovel. I don't think, like, the album is definitely not a perfecto. There is some filler on here, IMO.
Zero.
Well, no. I mean, Raw is not a good song. A Flat is not a good song. But I will say, Mud Shovel, excellent. Just Go, excellent. Suffocate, the first track, I thought was really interesting, because I feel like they're trying to sound like Korn.
Exactly. Like, Jonathan Davis voice.
Big like Jonathan Davis voice. Like, to the point where you'd almost be like, is Jonathan Davis guesting on this? It's like that level. And just the production, like the snare sound, the way it's produced. I was like, oh shit, is this whole album going to be them trying to do Korn? And then they don't do Korn. And so then I'm like, okay, so it's not that. So then what is it? You know, like, it's a very weird, it's just I don't know. It's a weird, like, it was weird because I thought, okay, this is the direction they're going, but then they don't. Like, it's just kind of just that one track is like the only time they sound like Korn, but it sounds so much like Korn.
It's a lot.
That it was very odd, but I liked it. I mean, I like Korn, so that
I love Suffocate, and I love Korn. So
really good song, and I thought Spleen was really good. I like Spleen a lot. That's the last track before the hidden track. And I like that a lot. That's like the only time on this album to me that they really hit with like a very heavy song. I mean, I guess Mud Shovel is heavy too, but like that to me, because I thought, yeah, the songs where they're screaming and they're going for a more heavy thing, which is like Raw, A flat, and Crawl. I didn't really love those. And then Spleen starts out and I'm like, this kind of sounds exactly like Crawl, but then it fucking hit. Like, I don't know. Yeah, Spleen I really liked. That might end up being my favorite song on the album. I thought it was really good.
Just Go is a song that I really love on this album, and the one where his sister calls him on the phone. Well, I now I have to look up the lyric to the song because that's a funny song too. I think it's Me.
Yeah, third song.
I hear you talk about your family. Just imagine me listening to this song, man. I wish I knew.
That's all I ever do, Brian. When I'm listening to these, I'm like, how is Brian listening to these?
I guess my mother never loved my dad. What a weird lyric. And then he's just like, my sister called me just the other day. It felt so good to hear her voice. My problem is I don't have much to say. I guess she doesn't have a choice, and I'm sorry. I'm so pathetic. See, I love this album. I think maybe it's also because, John, you have a loving family.
Yeah, I'm approaching these songs in a different way for sure.
Yeah, because I look at them and I'm like, yeah, fuck them all, man. Just fuck them. Who cares? I don't need them around no more.
Such a funny thing to say to your friend, John. You have a loving family.
Yeah.
So
that might be why you're not
wrap your head around this.
That might be why you're not totally wrapping your mind around it as much as I am. Because when I hear that song, I'm just like, holy fuck, man, that really speaks to me. So that, like, a lot of the songs about family really speak to me. Now, the problem with those songs is the respect your elders version of Aaron Lewis then is just like, oh, he wasn't serious. He wasn't like me. You know what I mean?
Well, he kind of has too, like, it'll show up in the articles, which we'll get to in a second. It's giving a little David Draymond, where he's never super specific about anything. Like, because remember, like, there's obviously the part in Down with the Sickness where, David Draymond kind of hints at his mother being abusive and whatever, that weird breakdown. And then he basically had to come out and be like, oh, like, that's not true. Like, my mom is great and we have a great relationship and she never abused me. And he kind of almost had to admit, like, I just made that up because that's Korn's doing it, so I'm doing it. And I feel like it's a little bit, and I'm not saying, like, yeah, maybe Aaron Lewis had a difficult childhood. Like, I'm not saying it's 100% one way or the other, but it is just a little bit weird. Like, definitely people ask him about it because the lyrics are pretty raw. The album is called Dysfunction. People are asking him about it, and he never gives kind of a direct thing. And I know that obviously that's also his right. Like, if he had a tough childhood, you don't have to say in an interview exactly what happened, but it was in vogue to do that. Like, these new metal bands were getting big because they were either in the songs or in interviews or in both being very explicit about what happened. So it all kind of struck me as a little bit strange, where when asked about it, he's always just kind of like, no, yeah, like, I had a tough childhood, and, childhood is tough. And so, yeah, this is about dysfunction and my family's dysfunctional. And it's like, okay, but what does that mean exactly? Because I get the sense that this could easily be made up. I don't know that it is, but it comes across maybe a little bit that way.
It's hard to tell. I will say, the thing I think that hit me more than anything with these articles, I want to bring up the MTV one real quick.
Yeah.
Because it's something I think we should spend some time talking about.
Yeah, for sure. So this is from MTV.com, and it is from July 21st, 1999. Gil Kaufman, StainD get helping hand from Limp Bizkit singer. So
I think something I'm interested in, and this band is very, very obsessed with self-mythology, like, and building lore. for the band.
It's in every interview. We're covering 4 interviews from the time period, and they mention it in every single one of them.
So what is the utility of, and I'm just, because if it's made up,
tell the story first before we
we got on a bill with Limp Bizkit just a couple months before Thanksgiving in '97, Lewis said, and Limp Bizkit singer Fred Durst wasn't happy when he saw the album cover. He told us we're all fucking whack and he thought we were fucking devil worshippers. Durst seemingly got over the album's cover image of a bloody Bible impaled on a knife and checked out the group's show. For some reason, he stood side stage the whole show, and at the end of the set, he had changed his mind, and all of a sudden I was talking about getting us signed. Lewis said, I was surprised by it, and at the same time I was like, yeah, whatever. I don't understand like why they think that is. I don't get it. The story, like
I don't either. I don't know.
They're
what
not
it's doing
even
for them.
They're also it makes them look silly, and it makes Fred look silly, and it makes everybody look kind of just silly, which is fine. It's silly music for silly people. These guys are, maybe the most serious of the bands that we cover. I can't think of anybody more serious than these guys. Like, they're not doing funny songs, or, they're not doing an All in the Family. But I don't understand the story, why the story has to get told exactly the same every time and what it does, because it would be one thing to say we're satanic and this album was satanic and it's badass and we're cool and Fred Durst is a square. That's not what they're saying. They're saying that it was all a big sitcom misunderstanding. And once Fred found out they were good Christian boys, then he was like, oh, I'll sign you to Flip Records.
Yeah.
So I don't know who came up with the story. It feels like a story that's made up. It feels like,
well, here's how I interpret it. I interpret it as Fred is joking. Like, that's the way I'm taking it. I think this conversation did happen. We talked about this. So look, we're not going to go through it all again. If you haven't listened to the Break the Cycle episode, we talk extensively about the cover for Tormented, which was StainD's self-released debut album. It is fucking insane. It's one of the stupidest, weirdest album covers I've ever seen. But I could absolutely see, because I just don't think Fred cares enough. I don't think Fred would care. Like, are you guys Satanists? Like, to me, Fred is just not that kind of guy that's going to give a shit about that. In my mind, Fred comes backstage, meets them for the first time, goes like, whoa, I saw that album cover out there, boys. What are you, a bunch of fucking Satanists? Like, that's how I'm seeing Fred interpreting it. And then maybe StainD is very self-serious, or they're nervous because this is their first interaction with Fred. Maybe if I'm being generous, maybe I grant them that they don't know that Fred is joking. But like, to me, the way they make it sound is Fred basically yelled at them, told them to kind of like fuck off, kind of even said in some of the stories, the story is they thought Fred was going to pull them off the bill.
Which he would have if he was that worried.
Exactly. And so, but then he magically watched their entire set. Like, I don't know. I don't see it.
It definitely feels like they sat down with Fred and they came up with a story.
Right.
And you can see Fred being kind of, I don't love this Satan stuff, because you're talking about a genre of music that had been painted with this idea that it's this dark, satanic goat's heads and Baphomets and stuff like that. And that is not what these bands are.
No.
And they're pushing.
That Fred is very concerned with business, right? Like, that Fred would be thinking of it like, this could make some people not buy it if you're Satanists or whatever.
Yeah. And it just, I just think it is like, we don't release satanic albums because it's corny, because it was at the time. I mean, there's a lot of people, I was of the age of like, that Satan's shit is just corny as hell. I think
we made fun of Godsmack back in the day for sure, and I liked Godsmack's music, but it was like, Sully Erna thinks he's like a witch or whatever.
Yeah. It was just kind of a goof. We were looking for something that was more. We didn't get into Korn because we thought that they sold their soul to the devil. We got into Korn because they were a bunch of guys that looked really cool on a poster.
Yeah, Korn seemed cool. It wasn't about what does Korn believe in. It was just like they look cool and I want to be Korn. That was the thing with Korn and Limp Bizkit. To me, it was like they were celebrities in a way. It was like in a way of like I want to be them. Most bands, I'm like I like their music. I don't think of like I wonder what it would be like to be in that band. Korn was fully like I want to be the drummer in Korn. That seems like it would be the coolest thing ever.
You also at this time, I don't think you want to be the satanic guy because there is one and he's doing it better.
That's also true.
Than everybody else. And he's massive and hugely fucking famous. So it's like, well, what are we going to do? We're going to bring these guys on as the satanic guys and they don't have the same charisma. They don't have the same, like they don't have any of that stuff that
because you have to think of like if you were a satanic band like StainD or like if StainD was a satanic band, the move would be you're opening for Marilyn Manson.
Yes.
And StainD would not fit opening for Marilyn Manson.
No.
Or at least not in the same way as StainD opening for Korn. That makes way more sense.
And Fred's, again, talked about this earlier. I think, Fred wanted Alice in Chains on his label. He wanted Nirvana on his label. Like, that's really what he was collecting.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, that's why the story's so interesting to me in that, like, he sees the album cover. Maybe he if I'm being generous and believing this story word for word, maybe he thinks they played like deicide, like death metal. You know what I mean? And he's like, oh, I'm not into that death metal stuff. But even if he believed that, I don't think that he would have Deicide or Cannibal Corpse open for Limp Bizkit ever. I don't. No. I just can't imagine him
confused about that. He wouldn't be standing side stage and going, "How did this happen?"
Yeah,
how was Cannibal Corpse allowed to open for us?
So, if I had to guess, this is my guess. This is all just a story that they came up with together that makes their meeting a lot more interesting than Fred Durst saw them live, listened to a demo, and said, I want to hire my own Alice in Chains.
Yeah.
That's the story.
Sure. I think that's true for sure. Before we get to the articles, this is tradition. We've kind of got to the articles already, but on the Break the Cycle episode, I read an NME review. We do not often read reviews on the show, but NME hates StainD. They hate them.
Makes sense.
They hated Break the Cycle. They hate Dysfunction. And I just, sometimes it's fun to read a hateful review. This is from NME reviewing Dysfunction. This really is as bad as it gets. That's the first line. I love it.
Get out of here.
Massachusetts meddlers StainD were discovered by Limp Bizkit frontman Fred Durst, were promptly signed up, and have now shifted 800,000 copies of Dysfunction in the States. We cannot let it happen here. In the UK, they mean. Predictably, StainD sales figures say more for Durst's business acumen than his talent spotting, because so weak and worthless is this debut album that it's hard to see how even Bizkit fans will get excited. Everything about this is just too secondhand and contrived to be true. From the scary clown on the cover, hello Slipknot, to the self-pitying Korn light lyrics of frontman Aaron Lewis, StainD's debut is bottom-of-the-barrel sports metal. The music's a half-assed blend of chugga-chugga riffery and direly tuneless, secondhand Stone Temple Pilots melodia, which, when blended with Lewis's hideous poetry, makes for a sickening journey straight to the land of dog shit. Look at me, I'm so pathetic, he wails on me, an hilariously self-absorbed ode to unhappy families. It wouldn't be so bad if his voice didn't bring to mind Eddie Vedder being fisted in jail. A country twang of breathy insincerity and embarrassing ball-clenching angst. Such a cancer on the face of everything that's beautiful is how Lewis describes his situation on the half-inspired Just Go. I couldn't have put it better myself.
Okay.
I love it. I mean,
everybody's got their own opinions. No kidding.
I don't agree. I think this is a good album, but I I love that. Because StainD, I feel like, the reception's usually mixed, leaning positive on them. So it's just so funny that this publication was just like, nope, this band, we're drawing the line. We're pretending to like Korn and Limp Bizkit. We're drawing the line at StainD. I love it.
Yeah. You do get it though. If you're a guy that does, if you're a guy that reviews music, you probably heard 500 albums that sounded like this in a row before you got to this one. And it is derivative. It's just fucking good. Like I also, again, the reason I wanted to bring up that news story is like, it's all kind of just, it feels very prepackaged.
Oh, totally. Well, and here, this is the other thing I had from the MTV article, which is, this is kind of what I was talking about before, that Aaron kind of just refuses to get specific. All the lyrics are about me, Lewis said, of the dark words he often improvised in the studio, which obviously we learned that's also part of the lore that he loves to, I don't write anything down. That's why it's called Dysfunction. It's just a list of all the fucked up shit I've gone through in my life. Among the personal travails Lewis dissects in songs such as Suffocate Me and the album's next single, Mud Shovel, are sexual abuse and learning that his mother never loved his father. Those are not quotes from Aaron. That's what they're guessing. Even with intense therapy and the emotional release of venting. Oh, fuck. It did this last time. It switched to a fucking, okay, hold on.
I hate that when that happens.
Yeah, just like automatically went to a different website, a real audio website. That's how you know how old this article is.
Hell yeah.
Even with the intense therapy and emotional release of venting his traumas on CD, Lewis says he has no problem calling up those emotions during shows. Quote, I just do it for 35 minutes every night, and then I go on with the rest of my day, he said. It keeps me on an even keel. I get all my frustrations and aggressions out on stage and get my peace and tranquility from fishing during the day. And fishing is going to come up a lot in these articles. That's the other thing. For whatever reason, he's decided that he loves to tell people is this guy just fucking loves fishing. And he just wants you to know that he thinks fishing rules. And that's it. But I do think it is funny to think of like, this is so emotional for me. Like I can only handle it like 35 minutes at a time. And then I need to go fishing the rest of the day. I thought that was funny.
Yeah. But, well, I love fishing. I mean, there are so many, like the questions in a lot of these interviews are actually funnier than listening to him.
Yes.
Talk.
Not a great talker.
Yeah, but Lollipop Magazine. This
our favorite. We love Lollipop Magazine. It just says an interviewer with singer Adam Lewis.
Yes.
StainD. Yes. This is from June 1st, 1999.
I'm going to read this little piece of it. Where are you now? In Philly. I just talked to the Dropkick Murphys a couple nights ago and they were in Philly. I'm like, oh shit, for real? Like,
yeah, cool, man. Like, as it, Aaron Lewis is sitting there going, oh my God, okay, yeah.
Oh, what? No way. The driver. That's wild. That you were in a city that they were once in.
Well, that's so nuts, dude.
You're the outdoorsy. Riffing. Now we get some riffing. You always wanted to hear Aaron Lewis riff.
Definitely.
With a guy. And this guy is riffing with Aaron Lewis. He goes, you're the outdoorsy type. He goes, yeah, that's it. Hunting, fishing, living on a farm. Yet you're resourceful. You can fix a tractor axle with a wad of chaw, a fishing lure, and a length of 10-pound wire.
I love that he calls it chaw.
Yeah. He goes, that's totally old school. Like our bassist, Johnny April, he can fix anything with a piece of chewing gum and the gum wrapper. Motherfucker, that was the joke the other guy just said.
He just said it. Yeah.
You did it. You just did the same fucking joke he did. And he goes, we lose that. And then our interviewer, this is so good.
Yeah.
This is such a moron thing to say.
Yeah.
We lose that in a consumer-based semi-urban world. Instead of tinkering, we call 800 number support centers. And Aaron's like, totally. And listen, if I was Aaron, I would have, yep, you got a point there.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. Aaron does not want to riff, and I bet he's not good at it either. So this is his opportunity to go just like, yep, man, like get to the questions about the music.
And then the next question in this article that really hit me good.
Yeah.
Is your deal a one-off or long-term? 6 records.
Yeah. Even the interviewer is like, whoa, okay, that's a damn.
He says, damn, that's a lot seeing as you've only done 2. And Aaron's like, and the first one doesn't count.
Yeah.
It feels like that feels like a cry for help.
Yo, totally. Yeah,
so good. Yeah, he's like, oh yeah, the first 6 records. I wonder when that deal was up, like 2013, maybe.
I don't even know if they've done that many. I don't think they've done that many records.
No, because the contract
they broke up too. So they have done 8 records, but that's including Tormented. So they did Dysfunction, Break the Cycle, 14 Shades of Grey, Chapter 5, The Illusion of Progress, self-titled album. That's StainD. So that's the 6 records there. And then they stopped for 12 years, and then Confessions of the Fallen came out last year.
Yeah.
So like let's look like so even StainD, the one that came out in 2011, the self-titled one, came out on Flip. So
damn, man, Fred made some fucking cash.
Oh yeah, Fred did it. This is kind of what I was talking about earlier. This is a really good one. Just again, we're hearing some names we do not usually hear as influences. You started out as more of a hard rock band like Soundgarden, perhaps, then got more hardcore, then came back into new expressive metal. Aaron, while I'm into Soundgarden and Alice in Chains, I didn't really draw off them. That is an absolute lie. Absolute, just an unbelievable lie. I try not to really draw off of anything. Also a lie. I love Korn and Deftones, but I also love Crosby, Stills and Nash, James Taylor, Cat Stevens, and the Beatles. And the Indigo Girls. They played probably the best live show I've ever seen. So impressive. They sounded so amazing. It was just the two of them sounding great. And as for shows that bring goosebumps every time I think about it, Tool. They're perfect.
Yeah.
And then the interviewer says, Tool is such an amazing band, and I respect the living hell out of them for not jumping at every photo op the way Korn does.
What is that about? I don't even understand that.
Really dumb. And then Aaron says, nothing, absolutely nothing. They did it the hard way, keeping true and not overdoing the publicity and overexposure, and they've prolonged their success by doing it. It's like, listen, interviewer, my brother in Christ, Tool not doing publicity is the publicity, my brother. It's all calculated, my friend. It has nothing to do with Tool. I hate to tell you, but anyway, I just
fucking Korn. That drives me fucking up the wall.
Yeah,
but not jumping at every photo op the way Korn does. What the fuck are you talking about? And you know what that is? That is the old. Once you get popular, everybody accuse you of selling out.
Yeah, that's 1999. So it's post Follow the Leader.
Yeah,
Korn's in their bag at that time, so they're already starting to turn on him.
You got an IGN interview, StainD.
This one
an IGN
great.
Classic interview. Frontman Aaron Lewis talks about the band's music and his fishing fetish.
This is originally from IGN for Men, which that is a really great look back in time. That there was a specific man page on the IGN website, May 1st, 2000.
Oh, and women playing your video games. That's what I'm saying. Hate it when my wife is into stuff I'm into. It fucking sucks.
Give me my own website. I don't want to go on a website my wife might also go to.
Yeah. Oh, I was sitting next to my wife. We're both looking at IGN. I was like, I got to get out of here immediately.
Yeah. Someone get me in. Can I get my own IGN? This is fucking bullshit, dude.
She's not reading Maxim. I caught my wife reading a Maxim magazine. That guy that gets real mad about it. If
I need
was
a Maxim for Men.
If it was 2000, we would have a great fucking SNL bit about a guy catching his wife.
Yes.
Reading Maxim and being like, fuck this shit. What were you and Mike talking about? So this is some lore. A little more lore. These guys are big lore heads.
Yeah, this is so originally they just talked about how him and Mike Mushock, the guitarist of StainD, met at a Christmas party.
And can I say, listen, I ain't shitting on them for making lore. My other podcast is full of an insane amount of lore. You know what I mean?
There's always
I'm fine with it. He goes, what were you and Mike talking about at that fateful Christmas shindig? By the way, what's he doing at a party on Christmas? That's the Lord's holiday. You're supposed to be with your family. I mean, you two didn't know each other before that. And he goes, we were just talking about being in bands and how he was a guitar player. And I told him I was a singer, which he had heard from about 2,000 different guys already because he's been trying to put a band together, by the way.
Great brag. 2,000 people know I'm a good singer.
Well, and here's the deal. 100% believe that because so many guys are singers out there. Yeah. Guys that just are like, I ain't buying no fucking instrument. I'm a singer. I want to be in a rock band.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
He goes, and I don't know, I might have even belted out a couple of lines from Eddie Vedder or something in the hallway at the party, and he gave me his number.
That is so funny to imagine.
Yeah.
Him being like, no, I am a good singer. Come out into the hall. Jeremy's Hogan.
Oh, he was singing like, Black for sure. And all I wall, everything. And he was like, oh my God, here's my phone number.
Yeah.
It sounds like a real sweet meeting a way, but knowing the two guys, you're like, no, it's two nasty guys being nasty. He goes, I ended up going to Atlanta and going to school for a while. And like 10 months later, I came back into the area, and the place I went to work at happened to have a mutual friend that worked there. Me and Mike ended up getting together, hooked up again. You think he sang over the phone the second time? He's like fucking, yeah, they come to snuff the roost.
Yeah, definitely.
It's funny. I love that he said Eddie Vedder, though.
He's like, do you remember me? And Mike's like, I don't think so. He's like, we met at the Christmas party. He's like, I don't remember. And then he's like, heave and flow. And then Mike's like, oh, yeah.
You're the Eddie Vedder guy.
Yeah.
It is so refreshing. I'll say this about Aaron Lewis, and it's very obvious I don't like him the way I talk about him.
Yeah, not a good guy.
Not a good guy, but the only... Now, somebody, if you find an article, send it to me, of a guy that does that voice that admitted that a lot of it's Eddie Vedder. You know what I mean?
We don't get that for sure. And especially because it's grunge, right? They're all trying to be like, no, I didn't even really listen to grunge growing up.
Yes. And their voice sounds so Eddie Vedder-like that people accused him of that. People often listen, I don't know how it was where you're from. Where I'm from, that voice, that butt rock post grunge voice has always been Eddie Vedder's fault in my mind. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's like
for sure.
They heard him do it, and then fucking what's his name? Scott Weiland did it. And listen, I'm not going to get into the argument about Stone Temple Pilots and Pearl Jam. They could have been happening at the same time. I don't fucking know. But Scott Weiland did it, and they hit big. And then Alice in Chains kind of, I'll leave Alice in Chains out. But they got big, and then every rock band for fucking 30 years does that voice. Like it just is, that's a voice. There's always going to be a band that does the Eddie Vedder voice, and he admitted he's doing it. And that right there, to me, that, way into my art. Okay. You know what, Aaron, at least you were honest about your voice. I like this. I like the IGN guy go, it's funny how those chance meetings sometimes take years to come to fruition. So speaking of jobs, what's the most fucked up job you ever had prior to the success of StainD? The job that made you say, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. Now, Aaron Lewis is going to say something that me and him share in this. I was a grill cook at McDonald's for a little bit. Now, let me say, there's no grill cooks at McDonald's. It's you fucking pull a thing down. First of all, nobody is a grill cook at McDonald's. You do every job that you can do back there. I worked there. I was a grill cook at McDonald's. Hell job. He goes, I did landscape for a little bit. Guess what? I did landscape for a little bit. And then he goes, I played in the bar scene. I played countless sets of acoustic songs in that area, in that arena. So it's like, he did two of the shitty jobs that I did, so I do have to give him a little respect. Although
it sounds like you love Aaron Lewis, dude.
Although he does earlier in that article say he went to school for 10 months, and then he also says he's playing shows around town. So I don't know how much he worked a real job. You know what I mean? I think he has to say he worked a real job.
Yeah.
Because that's like kind of part of his thing. And he goes, wait, are you, this is so insulting, John, from the interviewer.
Yes, for sure.
This is so incredibly insulting. I couldn't even believe the guy said it. And I can't believe Aaron didn't fucking lose his mind. So he goes, wait, Are you telling me that you were a cheesy cover band musician before StainD? Why did he say cheesy?
I don't know. I don't know.
What's wrong with being in a cover band? And then Aaron has to,
according to this guy, lots.
And now Aaron has to dig out of the line cheesy, because now the very idea of being a cover band is framed as being cheesy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Now Aaron's in the position where he has to say, he goes, actually, we started out as a cover band. We covered everybody that we like to listen to. And that was what made us different from everybody else. We were playing everything from Korn and Rage Against the Machine to Tool and Helmet and Alice in Chains and Pearl Jam and Stone Temple Pilots and all that stuff. So he had to, I can't imagine a cover band at that time playing Korn and Rage Against the Machine or Tool or Helmet. Maybe some Alice in Chains and Pearl Jam and Stone Temple Pilots. I don't know. I think that it's okay to be in a cover band. I don't think it's cheesy.
Yes, I agree.
To be in a cover band. I think cover bands oftentimes are ways for guys that are, this is a perfect example. Cover bands are oftentimes ways for guys that want to make a living in music to make a living in music while they're working on their own shit. Totally. You know what I mean?
And then they say that, which we talked about earlier, which I hate, is they said the difference between them and a cover band was that every fourth or fifth song we'd throw in one of our originals. And that is so bad.
John, who in
I've seen many cover bands in my life, and I've never heard of one of them doing an original song.
I just want to know, like in 1996, 95, who the fuck is hiring a cover band that plays Korn?
It's got to be like local, like shitty local shows. It's not like they're playing weddings and they're showing up and playing Helmet. Like I don't think it's that.
Or clubs though, because a lot of times cover bands just play at bars at night, so that it's a way to get people dancing and singing. You know what I mean? Because they know the songs. In 1995, if you're covering Korn in 1995, everybody's walking out of the bar.
Yeah.
Like I had just gotten into Korn in 95 and I was early to the motherfuckers.
Yes,
so
you were
just a weird, I think the way the question was asked made him have to dig his way out of there. And so he was like, we were a cover band, but not like the other cover bands. Man, we played cool stuff. We didn't play none of that lame stuff like Poison, I guess. Because that's what it would be at the time. It would be like hair metal and
just
stuff.
like classics. You'd be playing like pop, probably some like Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
And like stuff.
IGN says, so what do you enjoy the most on the inside of the studio? Oh, this is so, he doesn't answer the motherfucking question.
This is amazing. But because he wants everybody to know he loves fishing. It's his whole thing.
He loves it. So what view do you enjoy the most? The inside of the studio? Why would you like that view? The inside of the tour bus? Another, why would you like that view? Inside of a venue or the inside of a hotel? And he goes, oh God, there's nothing.
Rockstar is saying the hotel. My favorite part of touring is being in the hotel.
Oh, I love being in a hotel. Also, I love being at the venue. The fucking period of time where you're at the venue before the show starts, it sucks. You wish you didn't get there so early. Totally. He goes, oh God, there's nothing quite like a lake. What? I didn't ask you what you like to look at. Like he's answering, what do you like to look at?
Yeah.
He goes, there's nothing quite like a lake. Like first thing when it's just starting to daylight out and there's still fog all over the water and you can hear the bass taking down frogs off in the distance or out on the ocean. Same scenario when the sun's just sizzling up out of the water. He goes, I love this line. This is for the interview. I detect a fisherman underneath the rock star.
Well, it sounds like he's trying to say like all right. Yeah. He's like, because Aaron didn't answer the question, so he's kind of being like, like, okay, that's not where I wanted this interview to go, but I guess I'll entertain you wanting to talk about fishing.
Methinks there's a fisherman under the rock. The way that's how I read it. And he goes, you never catch a sweet fish and then cook it up for the rest of the band. What? Nobody cooks fish anymore. You know where he's fishing? He's on fucking tour. He's fishing in shit water. That's what all the water in the city, John. I don't know if you know this. It's all shit water. You can't eat those fish. He goes, not really. Once in a while, I'll keep a striper because they're really good eating. Ugh, why is he talking like this?
Because he's in country boy mode.
Listen to me. Listen, he's from fucking Vermont. Hey, they're good eating. Hey, of course, you can't really catch and release when you're hunting. As long as you're brought up that way, I won't ever shoot anything that I ain't going to eat. My dad made me eat more than one squirrel and chickadee. Come on, dude. And everything else that I shot when I was a kid with my BB gun. Like now he's doing a character. And that's going to come up a little later with me when we talk about what happened with West Borland.
Should we just get to that? Because we're going very long here.
We told the story, number one, about West Borland, okay, on the last episode.
Yes. How
he saw him at an airport, and he went to sit down to talk to him, and he said, yeah, I'm heading home to Los Angeles. And Aaron said, your home's not Los Angeles. It's Jacksonville, Florida. Don't you ever forget where you came from. And they had like a whole pissing contest and thing. So we read this article. Aaron Lewis tells it like he sees it. An interview with the country music singer.
Yeah, this is from March 28th, 2024.
This is the first line. I didn't want to constantly get compared to what I had just finished, Lewis said, of his shift to country music over the phone from his home in Kentucky. Excuse me? His home in Kentucky? He's not from Kentucky. He's from fucking Massachusetts.
Yeah, Vermont.
Don't forget where you came from. But it's okay for him to forget where he came from because where he went is what he views as, the real America, Kentucky.
Yeah.
Asshole.
He's an asshole. There was only a couple things in this one. It was mostly, it's obviously someone that's on his side. This is from the Spectator World. And it's definitely someone who is agreeing with his right-wing politics or whatever. He wrote a song called Am I the Only One, which debuted at number 1 on the Billboard Hot Country chart and 14 on the Billboard Hot 100. Am I the only one? These are lyrics. Am I the only one who can't take no more? Screaming, if you don't like it, there's the fucking door. This ain't the freedom we've been fighting for. It was something more. Yeah, it was something more. Am I the only one willing to fight for my love of the red and white and the blue burning on the ground? Another statue coming down in a town near you, watching the threads of old glory come undone. Then they wrote, the mainstream reaction to that song was as predictably idiotic as the backlash years later to try that in a small town in Richmond north of Richmond. Mother Jones writer David Korn asked if Lewis was trying to incite another riot at the Capitol a la January 6th. Others wrote to his label executive Scott Borchetta, slamming him for releasing the song. Borchetta, to his credit, replied that his job has never been to tell my artists what to write and sing about. As much as me and Scott Borchetta do not see eye to eye politically, he has never backed down from allowing me the same freedom of speech that anybody else is supposed to have, Lewis reflected. There was an open letter written to Scott Borchetta calling for my cancellation, and he wouldn't do it.
Calling for my get out of here, man. Get the fuck out of here. I love this. This is his lyrics to Let's Go Fishing.
Oh, yeah. You got to read the whole first part. Let's Go Fishing is a sort of sing-along tune about how to cope when it seems like everything around you is going to hell in a handbasket. Lewis admits, I'm not going to try to sugarcoat anything and say that the song's not political. It's totally political.
No shit. He goes,
yeah.
Well, two songs, Let's Go Fishing and Made in China.
Yeah, which they don't show the lyrics for Made in China, that's probably for the best, although I am going to look them up right now while you read this lyric.
You got to work two jobs and rob a bank to put food on the table and gas in your tank, and everyone knows who's to blame, but I ain't going to worry about none of that shit today. So let's go fishing, let's go wishing on a star in the dark in the middle of the night. The world's gone crazy and shit ain't right. Let's go running a little backwoods hiding. It's all fucked up. I can't stand it. Let's go Karen. Let's go Brandon. And let's go fishing. So, wow. It's like all I'm going to say is like, what a fucking poser, man.
Dude, this Made in China is rough. It is rough. Okay, here's the first verse. I ain't made in China from all the cheapest parts. I ain't one for driving them imported foreign cars. I'm more like American Muscle from 1966. Yeah, I ain't made in China. I'm as American as it gets.
And it's so embarrassing, man.
It's so embarrassing. Then this verse comes down further in the song. Foreign made or city raised, I'm proud to say I'm neither. Which, is he not from like Springfield, Massachusetts? Like, is that not like a big city? I don't know. It's very...
Well, I mean, I don't know. He's from close enough to...
He was born in Rutland, Vermont, and then he moved to New Hampshire when he was 8, and then lived there till he was 12. Then he moved to Longmeadow, Massachusetts. Okay, it's not a big town, but he did also live in Springfield.
Yeah, anyway, I mean, he played in Boston. I mean...
Yeah. He said, foreign made or city raised, I'm proud to say I'm neither, and I ain't selling them any of mine. I ain't buying theirs either. If you got something to say about that, I couldn't give two shits, because I ain't made in China. I'm American as it gets.
Oh, he sucks so fucking bad.
It's brutally.
I said I don't want to. He goes, Lewis's success in the industry without the assistance of country radio is proof that people want authentic voice and sound, and because Lewis is not beholden to a fickle fan base, finicky radio programmers, or a wavering record executives, he says he will never feel compelled to apologize for anything he says in his music, no matter how offended people may claim to be. The only time he ever apologized.
This is a really funny story.
For something he did in his music career, he tells me, is when he sang some lyrics to the national anthem in the wrong part of the song. Otherwise, he has no patience for cancellation attempts from the left. Yeah, no shit. He only has patience.
He sung the national anthem before a World Series game and messed up the lyrics. And apparently he had previously criticized Christina Aguilera for doing the same thing. So
yes, he's a fucking incredibly stupid man. And then he goes, mob rule is not of the United States of America, period. The end. That's bullshit. I mean, come on. To the left, it's either you adhere to our narrative and our objective, or you're an outcast. You have no voice to participate. You have no opinion. You're deplorable. And you know what? Fuck you. This is coming from the guys who are like telling trans people that they're not allowed to be the person I hate these fucking guys so much, man. Yeah. Fuck, I hate these guys.
Yeah, sorry, bless me. This is really, it really sucks. And then I loved this too, that the message of Let's Go Fishing is actually that his life is really hard because he can see the world for what it is.
Yeah, I love that.
Explains being wide awake allows me to not just see the bad stuff going on because I'm paying close attention, and because I am wide awake, I'm seeing all the good stuff that's going on too. The Let's Go Fishing thing is just kind of a reminder to slow down for a second and take a pause, take a breath, look around you, see all the things that are going in our favor too.
Okay. Yeah.
Really good.
I mean, everything. So I get where he's coming from. But yeah, this is the widest gulf between love of the album and hate of the guy that I think I've ever hit.
Guy sucks really bad. Well, speaking of your love of the album, let's get to the tweet defense. This is where if someone were to tweet at you that they didn't like this album, how many tweets you would do in defense of it. Bryan, where are you putting it?
This album is perfect. I'm giving it a 10. It's a 100% perfect album. There is not a bad song on it.
Wow. Okay. I don't agree with you. And I do also hate Aaron Lewis. So I'll say 5. I do think it is a good album. I think it's up there with like kind of the next tier down. So you sort of have your like, your top tier, your Korn self-titled and your Significant Other and your White Pony and whatever. You got that kind of upper top tier. And then I think the tier below that is this album's kind of sitting in there with like Papa Roach and some of the other good stuff on here we've covered.